Welcome back for the second activity of the RealtimeAid Changemaker program application. In this short video, we will explain the second activity for your application. This activity will continue to build on the work that you have done in activity 1. So get your team together and make sure you have a pen or pencil, a large piece of paper, or you can tape together 4 A4 pages, a mobile phone to film your responses, and the project table from activity 1. The activity should take about 45 minutes, but you can spend as much time as you need to generate and discuss your ideas and make sure they are clear. In this second activity, you will start to see your project take shape. Thinking about and planning the project's timeline, resources, targets, and budget is an essential step to further define the project, will make the next steps clearer, and highlight where support is needed. At the end of the activity, you will have created a project map. The first step to creating the project map is to draw a curve on your paper. Make it stretch from one side of the paper to the other. This curve represents your timeline of your project. The point on the right represents where we are now. For the next step, you need to refer to your project table from activity 1. Start with the first challenge and plot each activity along the curve. For example, if we look at challenge 1 from the example in activity 1, families do not have access to fresh food every week, the 3 activities will be placed along the curve. Then, you will need to think about the timelines of your project. Consider when the activities take place and how long you will need for each activity. For each activity, add a date along the timeline. Now is the time to think about the size and scale of your project. How many people will you reach? How many workshops will you have? How many items will you distribute? This step is all about quantifying your response. For example, if we look at challenge 1 from the example in activity 1, families do not have access to fresh food every week, the project will create 1 community garden, work with 20 families, and host 1 lunch with 120 people. For each activity, add the relevant numbers. The next step looks at each activity in more detail and defines the resources that will be required to make the activities happen. You will need to think about 1, material resources. So what are the materials, tools, and equipment you will need? 2, human resources. Who will you need for the activities? Trainers, volunteers, a cook? 3rd, space resources. Will you need to find an office, a center? And will it need furniture? And finally, financial resources. Will you need to pay salaries, rent, or transport? For example, if we look at the activity to host a community lunch with participating families from the example in activity 1, the resources will be 1, material resources, ingredients, gas for cooking, plates, cups, and cutlery. 2, human resources, volunteers, and the coordinator. 3, space resources, equipped kitchen, table and chairs for 120 people. And finally, financial resources, space rental and transport. For each activity, think about the 4 different types of resources you will need and add them to your plan. There is a table in the activity sheet that you can download for this exercise that might be helpful at this stage. Now it is time to think about the budget and define how much it will cost you to carry out the activities in your project. Make sure you have done your research so that you understand the costs involved and what is reasonable and expected. For each activity, consider the different resources you will need and add the estimated cost to your curve. There is a table in the activity sheet that you can download for this exercise that might be helpful for this stage. Now it is time to share your project with us. Using your mobile phone, film the table you have created and talk us through what you have defined and planned. Work through each activity detailing the timeline, targets, resources, and budget. Make sure you speak clearly and add any extra details that you think are important. The last step is to take a photo of your finished curve and upload the video and picture files to the application form.